Joining me now, Fox News senior political analyst Brit Hume. Brit, great to see you. Before we get into Trump, let's just start with the news that's broken in the House tonight on Paul Ryan, who's now saying he will run for Speaker, assuming he has the votes. What does it mean and what does it tell us?
Well, he didn't quite say that, Megyn. What he said was that he would run for Speaker and would take the job if certain conditions were met, if he could be what he called a unifying figure. Now, unifying figures in the Republican caucus these days are not exactly thick on the ground. They're not exactly coming in the windows. So he was laying down conditions under which he would accept the job. And I think a lot of people in the so-called Freedom Caucus, who are the people that, by uniting and blocking the way, kept Kevin McCarthy from becoming Speaker, expected, I think, that the Speaker candidates would want to come to them and see what they wanted. But Ryan was laying down a list of conditions and said if he could be a unifying figure. So he's not just talking about getting the votes. In fact, he said he didn't want to just be a guy who barely squeaked through with 218 votes. He wants an overwhelming mandate from those people. And basically what he wants is, if he's Speaker, he wants those people off his back. And I'm not sure he's going to be able to get that from those people. They're pretty recalcitrant, and a lot of them are responsive to constituents, and I hear from them all the time, who think he's a rhino. And so that being the case, it may well not come to pass.
John Boehner better get comfortable in that spot, which he's agreed to hold for the time being.
Yeah, I think Boehner's really eager for the Ryan thing to happen because he doesn't want to stick around any longer than he absolutely has to.
Take the baton.
Yeah,
right.
he wants out.
All right, but a man who does not want out is Donald Trump. And what do you make of the Byron York piece today suggesting that the Republican, quote, establishment is preparing for war against Trump, saying if we have to take him down, we will. The negative ads will start. We'll go after him in Iowa. We'll go after him in New Hampshire. We're not letting this man get the GOP nomination.
Well, I think the world of Byron, and I suspect that headline that you're showing on the screen right now is not something he would have written. Somebody else wrote that headline. They're not quite at any kind of panic stage yet, but I think it's become clear, because it's getting late, Megyn, that his lead has persisted it so long, as you just described. You're looking at the kind of percentage of the vote that in a place like Iowa, or even perhaps even New Hampshire, could be the winning percentage. So you posit Donald Trump having won Iowa and New Hampshire or New Hampshire, and going into South Carolina, where he has a lot of support, you're looking at somebody who's got a tremendous head of steam and might become impossible to stop with a disaffected Republican electorate. So his nomination now becomes something that everybody has to say is possible. I wouldn't go as far as Chris and say that I can quite picture him elected president, because I think, remember, a lot of Democratic voters have a say in that, and his negatives are pretty high with Republicans. One can only imagine what they are like with most Democrats.
But, you know, one of the points that Byron makes is the Giuliani analogy that people point to doesn't hold water, because Giuliani was ahead. He was ahead for a while, but he was never polling ahead in Iowa and New Hampshire and South Carolina.
That's right.
The way that Trump has been consistently.
Right.
And so do you see greater staying power in Trump's numbers than we've seen in the past?
I do. I think the question is whether when people begin to fall by the wayside, which hasn't really happened yet. A couple of people have dropped out, and it looks like there may be a few more soon. But it depends on where their support goes and whether somebody emerges as the leading alternative to him. Now, that could be Ben Carson, which would make sense in a way, because after all, another constant in this cycle so far on the Republican side has been the enchantment with outsiders, and I don't mean people who've been sort of outsiders within the system. I mean complete outsiders, which is what Trump is, and it's also what Ben Carson is.
You've got sort of the brash, bold businessman outsider, and then you've got the more gentlemanly doctor outsider in those two guys. And they are close in a lot of these polls, but Trump continues to lead in all but, I think there was an Investor Business Daily poll that put Carson at 1. Brit, great to see you.
Thanks, Megyn.